What's going on, Craig?
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing awesome. All right, welcome everyone back to the show. So I am here with Mr. Craig Ballantyne. He's one of my favorite entrepreneurs and the author of the Perfect Day Formula. My wife is a big fan, so thanks so much for signing this copy. It's a signed
Oh,
copy.
yeah.
So I have it. It's a signed copy, and I'm really excited. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of increasing productivity because early on, one of my mentors told me, a guy called Ibn Pagan, he said, the fastest way to double, triple your income is actually to double and triple your productivity. And I took that to
Hmm.
heart. I went through multiple productivity programs. And I remember going through a program called Wake Up Productive. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Oh,
Craig.
yeah.
But that completely changed the way I live my life. And it's not always been perfect. I'm still not the most productive person at all. However, the good news is I have got Mr. Craig Ballantyne, author of the Perfect Day Formula, whose nickname is the world's most productive man. So, Craig, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you. It's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely, I'm excited. You are just going supersonic speed, growing your influence, your impact, and your income as well, especially on Instagram. You're doing some really cool stuff. So I want to get right into it. My group of audience, people that follow me, my clients, my subscribers, they're primarily online entrepreneurs. They're primarily lifestyle entrepreneurs. They want to be the backpack millionaire. So they want to travel around the world. They want to have fun. They want to grow a business. And one
They're
of
my
the
type of people. That's what I did.
that's what
That's what you did. That's what we love to do. So this is going to be so much fun.
absolutely. And one of the things that you are a master of, well, so many things now. Actually, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say I used to read Early to Rise like every single day. And I was a young broke kid, and this was my free information site. I used to go there, and this must have been, gosh, like 8, 9 years ago. So,
Hmm.
I remember reading your work, coming into the world of Mark Ford, and learning about wealth creation and all of the good stuff that you posted. And he actually inspired me to create my own one, which is
Hmm.
Online Profits Daily. I've been writing an email a day, 7 days a week for over 5+ years now. And, I grew my subscriber base to over 600,000 subscribers. And it's been a wonderful journey. As I look back, your site was something that really transformed my life, especially, I don't know if you still have this on your website, but it was something called 12 rules or 10 rules
Hmm.
to live by.
Yeah, I still have that on the site. And so just a little background for everybody listening is earlytorise.com was started by a guy named Mark Ford in 2000 or 2001. And like you, I was a fan when I was young and broke and struggling. And I ended up buying the business from Mark, and we're still kind of partners in it. And one of the first articles that I wrote when I bought the business was the 12 rules for my life. And I go through it, and you don't have to have 12 rules. You can have 5 or 6 rules, but they're rules for living. They're your operating system. Much like how your iPhone has a powerful operating system, every person needs a powerful operating system. The rules, the commandments that you live by. And when I found that, found mine, and when I put those into place, and when I found that other people started doing it, they had more success in life.
Yeah, that was absolutely one of the most amazing things I learned from that was writing down the affirmations. And I used to, gosh, I'm dating myself, but I remember this was when I was really young and broke. So good 8, 9 years ago, I'd write them down, affirmations, and I used to live with my parents about 20 minutes away from where I live, and I would wake up and put some Tony Robbins, earphones on, and I'd walk, up and down the road going through these affirmations, and it's kind of crazy to think how many of those things have come into fruition.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, Thinking to myself, I used to study from you. Now I'm doing a podcast. I mean, we met a couple of weeks ago in London, and I've expressed, ever since I was young, I was a fanboy of Craig. So I'm really excited about, some of the stuff you're going to share. Let's get right to it. I have a ton of
Oh,
prepared
nice.
questions. So one is, let's get going with this 12 rules.
Yeah.
Um, what were those 12 rules that you had? How have they changed as an entrepreneur like you've grown now?
Yeah, that's a really great question. A lot of them haven't changed much. I realize I probably could have just done maybe 8 or 9 or 10. There was a lot of them there, but most of them are about my code of conduct, and it's one thing is about what time I get up every day, and the first thing that I do for my business every morning, and how I conduct myself in public. And so I call myself a British gentleman. I do not curse or swear. I'm polite and courteous at all times. I hold the elevator door open. I talk to people that come in, and a lot of these things were aspirational at first. So I wasn't polite and courteous. I wasn't a British gentleman. I wasn't the type of person who didn't curse. I used to swear all the time, and I used to be rude, and I used to rush into elevators and hope that the door would shut. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to be like that. I want to be a better person. So some of the rules started out as aspirational, and I grew into them, whereas others served as boundaries for my life. Like, I go to bed at this time, I get up at this time, 7 days a week, and if I do, I'm going to have all day energy, I'm going to be more productive. I get up and I write for 60 minutes every morning. That's one of the first things that I do. And so those things made me more productive and successful over time. I think the only things that have changed were that I had a rule that I was going to help 1 million people transform their lives. But since then, I can easily count that I've helped millions of people transform their lives through the newsletter, through my YouTube videos. I have one YouTube video that's been watched 3 million times.
Wow.
So I know that we've helped that many people and more. So that one has certainly needed to grow. And there's a couple other ones that have stayed consistent in my life. There's a weird one that some people sometimes don't understand, and it is, I live by the mindset that this will all be over soon. And this is good and bad. So
that's the one. That was my favorite one. Oh man, I was trying to think of. There was one that spoke to me, and it's so funny. Sorry to disrupt you, but as I'm having breakthroughs, I'm just going to share them with you. I literally told my wife maybe a couple of days ago. I said, "Hey, next time I'm in this funk, just tell me, hey, is this really going to matter in 5 years' time?" And I was thinking to myself, man, I learned that from a great entrepreneur. It was from you. It was from those 12 rules. That was such a powerful thing I learned. That was a very, very powerful thing, man.
Yeah, and so for people who are listening, what it really comes down to is that you can look at this good and bad. So, Shaqir, as you were saying, sometimes you're in a funk. Sometimes, like I just went through a real long grind. I was finishing up a new book. I was doing all these coaching workshops. I had to hire 4 people, and so you have all these interviews, and that's like a full-time job on top of editing the book, which is a full-time job, which is on top of the running the business. And I'm like, this will all be over soon. I will come out the other side, and I'll be stronger for it. But also, you have to look at it from the positive side, or about the good things in life, which is, oh my goodness, this will all be over soon. So I really need to, when you have young children, you need to make sure that you spend time with the young children, because every single parent, they'll say, oh my goodness, it seemed like just yesterday they were 1 year old and now they're 5, or now they're 10, now they're in high school, now they're off to college or university. And so it will all be over soon. And that's a good thing that can power you through the tough times and dark days. And it's a reminder to keep you focused on being present during the good times, the memories that you need to be making.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate that very much. 12 rules. I'll probably put a link down to your 12 rules. I have something called 12 laws or 13 laws of Shaqir Hussyin. And these
I like it.
It's funny because I was, one of my workbooks that I hand out at my live events, I put those there. And I remember a guy coming in completely skeptical. And, one of the rules that I have, it says something like, at the end of the day, we're all going to die. We're all going back to God. Okay, whether you believe in God, that's whatever.
Sure.
But I wrote that, and a guy who was so skeptical came to me afterwards, and he basically said, how much he trusts and adores my work, and how he's more open-minded just because he read that one sentence of a law. And he said, I couldn't take none of this stuff serious, because I have loud music blaring at my events and, everyone were doing high fives and fun stuff. And it's cool because I was listening to a Dan Kennedy, I think it was one of his, newsletters. And he said, the secret to attracting affluent customers comes down to one word. That word is values. When somebody feels like they have the same values as you, they'll go premium. And I was thinking to myself, wow, what else can I do? So now I have a rule, which is every time I create a marketing piece, a webinar, a sales letter, whatever the case is, there's always a little chunk where it talks about my personal values. Because I think that just connects with people very, very deeply.
Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you a story about that. So, I grew up on a farm in Canada. I'm Canadian, not American, as most people think. So I grew up on a farm in Canada. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I work out all the time. And one of my most successful coaching clients, I am sure that the only reason he hired me is because he's from Tennessee. He is a farm boy at heart. He grew up on a farm. He gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and he goes to the gym. And so I do coaching with him, and there are days where like I have no idea. This guy is the CEO of a $750 million company, and I'm helping him through a lot of stuff, but I can't help him through everything. And I'm like, the reason why he feels like he can talk to me is because we share the same values. Because he's in the position where he can't take his problems to spouse, family, employees, to investors. He can't go and show any weakness, but he can lay on everything to me, and it's because we share those same values. So if, people who are listening, here's the takeaway lesson. You need to have the personality and copy that Dan Kennedy has talked about for years. And I go to a lot of Dan Kennedy events, and there's no high-fiving there. No high-fiving and no loud music. It's just Dan Kennedy telling the same Dan Kennedy stories over and over and over again, so often that you can sit there and mouth the words. But there's one story that he's told over and over and over that resonates with me on this one. And so there was, he was involved years ago with this coaching program. It was like the Tony Robbins coaching program before there was Tony Robbins. It was either called Esther or something like that. And what they were doing is they were selling people into these high-priced workshops. And this guy got in trouble for it, the guy who was running it. And his name was Glenn something, and Glenn Thompson or something like that. And he had a hair lip, which means like his lip was all messed up and he couldn't speak properly. And so this guy went to court. Long story short here, this guy went to court, and the jury just did not find him guilty because there was one woman in the audience whose son had the same condition as him, the hair lip. And she was like, oh my gosh, this man is successful. I want him to come and talk to my son. And so she wouldn't find him guilty because all she thought about, is if there was something there, right, that this man could come and inspire her son to go on and be something. And so you never know. I mean, obviously that's an extreme example because it's a physical, challenge. But, if you have a dog, you should share about your dog and copy. If you have beliefs, you should share about your beliefs and copy. If you have rituals, whatever. That is how you get connected. And I think that's one of the reasons that you and I loved Mark Ford's writing so much is because he was very good at sharing personality and copy before it became a thing, before it became popular. And we just looked up and were like, oh man, when he talks about his vacation in Rome, you're like, I want to be like him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy because, when I do events or when I do webinars, sometimes if it's a live webinar, I'll be like, hey guys, I got to go and pray. And then I'll come back and I'll say, hey guys, whatever happens, I gotta pray 5 times a day, and that's it. It's non-negotiable. Just like how you wake up at 4 a.m., how you eat your breakfast and your lunch and you eat meals throughout the day. I have to pray 5 times a day. That's it. As a Muslim, that's the number one thing I gotta do. It's the most basic thing I gotta do. So no matter what happens, I'm doing that. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm speaking on stage. I'll sometimes do an event where there's a ton of people and I'll be like, hey everyone, we're taking a 15-minute break because I'm going to go and I'm going to pray. If you guys want to join me, come and pray with me. And if you don't pray, don't worry, I'm going to pray for you. And, sometimes people will come up and they will say, wow, I had a guy one time who bought one of my highest level coaching programs. It's a 6-figure investment, very high level, very intense as well. And I got off and he came up to me and said, look, my wife isn't here and this is a very big decision I'm going to make. And I said, you should go speak to your wife before you make this decision. Yeah. And as I got talking to him, I said, what makes you want to buy? He was a very successful engineer. I tend to attract a lot of engineers. I'm not sure why, but they're good clients and they follow directions. So he comes up and he says, listen, I've gone to so many events and I've met so many gurus like you, but I've never heard anyone talk about their dad so passionately and their religion. And I thought, huh? And this was probably about 3-4 years ago now. And guess what? When I speak on stage or when I'm doing a high ticket offer, a webinar, a sales call, whatever the case is, I always talk about two things. I talk about my spiritual beliefs, and then I also talk about my dad. And the dad one came almost by accident, because I always talk about sales funnels and creating digital assets. And then I talk about my dad. When I was a kid, he used to teach me, if you buy a property, you get passive rental income. And he said, the more properties you can acquire, son, the more passive income you'll make. And I took that concept and I thought, what if I just built these websites and these sales funnels and I sold multiple products? And my customers, they get the aha moment through that story. So values is definitely one of the key elements to attracting affluent, high-paying customers. I know that you have a ton of high-ticket programs.
Well, I will say it's also a key element in attracting a high volume of low-paying customers too. So it works on all levels for everyone listening.
Yes. In terms of for you, because you have high-end workshops, $5,000, $25,000, $50,000 programs. What do you find are the key elements for when someone goes from visitor, looky-loo, to a serious buyer?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so there's two things I would say is, one, do they come in through a referral? Referrals are key, and it doesn't matter what you are selling, from the $20 ebook to the $50,000 program. When someone comes in as a referral, word of mouth, or I have referral programs, I'm always asking for referrals. I'm giving my clients referral email scripts. And when that happens, the barrier to entry is so much lower and the objections are lower, because, what's one of the biggest things? Can I trust this person? If you're referred by a friend, then that friend is not going to steer you wrong. So referrals, especially at the affluent level, are more important than anything else, because, like when you and I are going out and we're looking for somebody, whether it is anything from a plumber to a real estate agent to, where we're going to buy our cars, we're going to go to a friend first. We're not going to go and do the Google search. The very first thing we're going to do is probably go to a friend. Who do you recommend? Because I don't have time, affluent people don't have time to be searching all over the place. And I would, just tell me, because I trust you. So that's really key. And then the other thing continues on with the value, and that's just sharing and sharing and sharing. Social proof. So, Bedros Keuilian and I have something called the Empire Podcast. We have very high-end people watching it. We get thousands of downloads per episode. And eventually, someone who watches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 episodes, 20 episodes, they get to the point where, like, I know these guys really well now through the podcast. I realize they're consistent. They've gone through the ups and downs. Oh, that story really resonated with me. Oh, I see they've done something like me. Okay, now I'm ready to go and do that. And that's very passive as well. We go and film once, and people can watch over and over and over again all around the world. So it's very powerful. So I would say the referrals and, the personality and consistency in your content and your copy.
In terms of, that's really great, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of identifying what's your, let's before we talk about your highest leverage activities, let's talk about most entrepreneurs, even myself as well, hands up, suffer from ADD, all these opportunities, and now I'm doing this show, and I'm like, at first I thought, wow, what if, people say no to me for whatever reason? And I remember, writing you an email. I wrote Mike Dillard, I think, Anik Singhal. And, I've known Anik Singhal for the last 10 years. And I was thinking to myself, why isn't no one responding? And I thought, why isn't Craig responding? I met him. And then Anik Singhal, I was like, I've known this guy nearly, for the last 10 years. And his response was, hey, I love it. Let's do it. Let's book it in. He gave me a month schedule out. But I'm like, okay, cool. I'm done. So, and I was thinking to myself, there's so much. And then I thought, wow. I got to go through, and I don't want to outsource this task, you know what I mean? Of saying, hey, having an assistant schedule, not now. Let me get the first 100 to 200 episodes done. So anyway, for me, I was looking at that and I thought, I do this right, it's going to be a high leverage activity. It's going to be $1,000 to $10,000 per hour activity. How do
Mhm.
you differentiate between your lowest level activities and then high leverage activities?
It's a really great question, and so it's funny. Yesterday, I'm down in Santa Monica, California, and I was walking around yesterday, and I was like, I really need to say no to something. I had this urge to say no to something because I realize I've been saying yes to too many things recently, and my schedule is becoming very busy, and so I need to review my boundaries, and I have monetary boundaries around the work that I'm willing to do, the speaking that I'm willing to do. And I was like, it's time for me to say no to something because I noticed my boundaries are starting to stretch and some things are creeping into my life that aren't worth my time. So I think about it a lot, and I think about, okay, listen, I can't go and speak at an event just because I might meet somebody interesting. At some point, you got to draw the line. So if you can put monetary value around, okay, I can only do this podcast if it has this many downloads per show, because if that happens, then the chances of someone coming to my event are much higher. So I can only do stuff like that. And then it's like, okay, if I can't do all, a podcast of 1,000 people because it's not enough leverage, then I need to be putting that time into something to allow me to reach more people, like spending more time making my videos for YouTube, Instagram, etc., which I know will be seen by more people. So it's a little bit of art and science and figuring out what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. But all of that only comes in after you have taken care of your major priorities and built in your blocks of deep work. Like,
That's
for
what I
example,
was
I'm
going to
doing,
get into right now. How do you?
yeah.
Because I know that's something that you've helped me with a lot, and I've got that. It's like that 20-minute chunk, minute breaker, that
Yeah.
worksheet. I've taken it. I've tweaked a few things. Actually, it's here. This one.
Oh, very nice.
This is the one, right? I added in a few other things here, like rating myself out of 10, and then fun things to do: faith, family, fitness, finance, because those are things I want to work on. And then at the top, I put in my one big thing. And then right at the top, I put in an extra couple of quotes. And the first one is actually from my own self, just so I get into that zone. But these are some things that I've done, and you've inspired this work. What do you say to someone who's always very chaotic and they're trying to do so many different things? Like some of my clients, they tend to be very successful in a corporate world or in the business world. They're very successful in the business, but when they come online, there's like, I'm sending out an email a day. I'm sure you are. And then they join Instagram, and then they're following 10 different gurus. And sometimes, like, I look at them and I'm like, I just met one of them actually. He's a doctor from Toronto, I think, or New York. He flew down, came to my London event, and I said, so what are you doing? And he says, I've been following about 10 to 15 different gurus on Instagram, and I read everyone's emails, and I'm like, that's great. So what's been happening? He's like, well, I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I'm like, that's the problem with smart people, doctor. No disrespect, but you're trying to put the pieces together because you think you're very smart, so you don't get a mentor or you don't get someone to guide you. What's your advice to... Yeah, go for it. You know what I mean.
Oh man, so I'm from the fitness world originally. That's where I made my money, and so there's a lot of fitness models that you see on the internet and fitness models at these competitions. And the funny thing is that if you take a look at the people who are in the best shape, they're not the smartest people in the world. And the reason is because they know that, they're smart about that, and they take their coach's advice and they follow it exactly to the letter because the coach is a smart person. And so what we see is all these smart people trying to get into fitness competitions, and they try and piece it together. Like you said, they go, oh, well, if this is what my coach said, I'll just tweak it, not because I know how to do it better. And it doesn't work out. So like you said, the doctors, sometimes the engineers, they try and make their own thing. But that's the worst thing. So if you're following 12 people on Instagram or you're getting 12 people's newsletters, what I recommend, and I don't even care if I'm not the person you pick, you just need to get rid of all of them except for one and go all in on that person. Like you and I went all in on Mark Ford for a fair bit. Like you don't have to do this for life, but right now for 6 months, for 12 months, pick your one guru and go all in on their advice and get their mentorship. You're much better to invest $25,000 with one guru than $25,000 spread across 5 gurus, because you are going to get the solution and you are not going to get the shiny object syndrome. So that is what you have to do. It's like putting boundaries on opportunity. You have to put boundaries on the input that you get. We need less input. We need more introspection and more work done on the input that we already have.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I mean, in terms of going deep, I also reviewed, and some of the stuff I've shared with you somewhat privately. One of my mentors who had built a $100 million per year company, I'd gone real deep for a good few years learning from him. And he was only like 1 or 2 years older than me. And his company did over $250 million. And he was about 31 or 32 years old. And so I spent the last 4 years literally traveling around the world, just learning and consuming and actioning. And the piece of advice that I want to share with all of my readers and your readers and anyone that's watching this is something that I didn't crystallize it, you crystallized it very well for me, which was be around people that you don't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
You want to touch on that? Because you just, I never put it that in those lines, but after hearing it from you, I'm like, perfect, like hit it on the spot.
Yeah. So what I found over the years is that, accountability is the secret to success. So accountability, first of all, is the secret to success, because all the information you want to know is out there for free, on YouTube or through these great podcasts that you do. And so if all the information is out there for free, why is everyone not more successful? And the answer is accountability. There's nobody holding you to taking action on the YouTube video you watched about how to set up a ClickFunnels. I know how to set up a ClickFunnels now, but I'm going to go do something else. But if you have a coach who's like, listen, you need to get this done, you're gonna have a much better chance of doing it. But there's a next level. So the secret ingredient is accountability, but the secret ingredient to the secret ingredient is you must be accountable to somebody that you deeply do not want to disappoint. So you must be accountable to somebody that you deeply do not want to disappoint. And I found this out through my own personal experience working with my coaches, Bedros Keuilian, Matt Smith, Mark Ford. I do not want to let those guys down. And I've had other great coaches like Yannick Silver, and I would do about 80% of what Yannick said. And Yannick is a legend in the internet marketing world, but I would stop short. And I always wondered, why will I do 80% but not all of it? And it's because I like Yannick. He's a good friend, but he's not like a big brother to me. Whereas Bedros is like a big brother. And, it all goes back to the very first topic we were talking about, which is that connection. I have greater connection, greater values with Bedros. I look up to him. And so I look up to him like, this is a guy whose life I want to aspire to live like. Great family, bigger business, just also personality, really cool guy. And so I did not want to disappoint him. And when he told me to jump, I would say how high, and I would jump even higher than he said, because I did not want to disappoint him. And that's when the game changed.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. I mean, you can see this is just a tiny collection. This, I used to pay $25,000 a year. Dan Sullivan, amazing coach. Love the guy. Yeah. Love the guy. This one is from London, and then I joined the one in Toronto, and I'd go and sit there, and great content, great. It was just like 1 day or 2 day events that I would fly to Toronto and do. But there was something that I just didn't, whatever it was, I don't know what it was, but there was something that just didn't connect with me and him. And I just thought, it's just like, I didn't take it as seriously as, even the stuff I learned from here, from your book, or Russell Brunson. I paid him $25K for one of his programs many years ago, but I remember taking it much more seriously than I did with, with so many other coaches. And it does come down to that accountability and discipline. In terms of high performance, when you look at an individual and you say that guy is a high performance or that girl is a high performance individual, what differentiates them from high performers versus low performers?
That's a great question. And so I have just been writing a lot about this topic, and it might even be a new book because it's something I really, really love. It's got a good little phrase, and I call it being an operator. So They use this phrase for like a Navy SEAL, like, oh, that guy's on, he's an operator on a mission. And that's what I mean by an operator in that term, like a Navy SEAL. Navy SEAL gets like a special forces guy in the UK, he gets the mission, and it does not matter what happens to him. He's always moving ahead towards that mission. So shot in the leg, doesn't matter. You have a mission to finish, Mr. Navy SEAL. You're an operator. You're going to go and do it. And so there's a lot of books around these Navy SEALs in America. There's one called Lone Survivor about a guy named Marcus Luttrell. And he had all his mates killed. All the other Navy SEALs were killed. He still was on the mission. He was injured by a bomb. He had to pack mud into his wounds and just move on. And because he still wasn't done the mission. And so many people who want to be high performers will send me emails, will sometimes even come to my coaching with this mindset of, oh, I can't get everything done, or when I travel, I get off track with my food, or I get tired, I get sick, or I go to an event and I end up drinking too much and I'm hungover and I come home super tired. And I go, listen, the reason why you're not having as much success as you want, the reason why you're not being a high performer is because you are not in operator mode. So when I was in London, England to see you and to do my workshops, I was on a 31-day trip. I had been away from home almost 30 days by the time I got to London. I had gone on a safari. I had gone to Croatia and Montenegro, a bit of holiday, but a bit of work at the same time. I didn't ever get up late. I went to bed way later than I wanted to most nights, but I was an operator. And I didn't get sick because I even have the mindset, always washing my hands, shake people's hands, wash hands, because that's how you get sick. And then also sticking to my nutrition program while I'm on vacation because I'm an operator, doing my work because I'm an operator. And so I get to London, and even though I had gotten bit by a spider in my body in Montenegro, my body was actually fighting off an infection, I was an operator. I couldn't miss the workshops. I couldn't miss the extra social event that I held for you and all the people I invited. There was no way in heck I was even considering missing any of my events, even though I had this infection. It was so funny. And so I'm fighting all the way through this stuff because I was an operator. Now, eventually you're going to go home and you're going to recover. That's what Navy SEALs do. They go on a mission, they come back. But as an operator, you must be in the mindset that when you are on the mission, that nothing gets in the way. You don't go and you don't, sit around the bar with a bunch of people yakety-yakking and gossiping when you have to get up and learn from the guru the next morning. You have to draw the line. You're an operator. You don't miss a minute. And if you stay in the bar and the people are really good, well, you don't drink because you can't get it. You still have to go to the thing in the morning, and you can't be hungover, and you can't get sick. So you need to sit there and learn from all the cool people in the bar, but you can't get drunk with them because you're an operator. And when you take that mindset, you don't miss workouts when you travel. You don't go into the airport and say, oh, well, I'm traveling now. I can go to the worst food place in the airport and get some junk and be tired for the rest of your trip or start drinking on the airplane. No, you're an operator. And so that is what separates high performers from mediocre performers, from people who are playing below their potential, people who know they're capable of so much more. If you want to get to the next level, you have to become an operator.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate in 2015 to go spend 8 days with this mentor of mine, Dan Pena. Pena. Okay.
You went to the castle.
Yeah, I went to the castle with one of my close friends.
Good.
And it was an amazing experience. And one of the things that he taught was exactly that. It's you got to set your eyes on something and you just got to do whatever it takes. Like, it doesn't matter come hell or high, good or bad. It doesn't matter how you feel. If you need to get it done, you're going to get it done. And so I also see that in people that are, successful. They made $1 million, they made $10 million or whatever. I see that they have this knack of, it doesn't matter, just throw it at me, I'm going to get it done. What do you think that is on a deeper level, Craig?
That's a great question, and it is going to go right into the thing I was going to interrupt you and say, because there's a book called Relentless that I've read 3 times this year, and I rarely read a book twice. I've read this book 3 times this year. It's Relentless by a guy named Tim Grover. Have you read it yet?
I have not read it. I have.
Okay.
I have to.
You got it?
Yeah. I get it.
So So Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's personal trainer back when Michael Jordan dominated the NBA and won all the championships and became the legend. And there's a really great story about how Michael Jordan, in either Game 6 or Game 7 of the finals, he was suffering from the worst food poisoning you could ever imagine anybody having. And he played the game, and he still scored his regular amounts of points, and they had to carry him off the court at the end. You know, the guy nearly died, but he had food poisoning. Most people would say, I got food poisoning, I can't play tonight. There was no option. So not only did Michael Jordan play with food poisoning, but he was like the MVP of the game with food poisoning. And that is the level of being relentless. And so when I read that book, it really helped push me to a higher level of being an operator, that if you want to be successful, you need to go in there, and when the performance is on, there are no excuses. Again, it's not like you can't be in playoff mode all year long. You have to back off, just like Michael Jordan would back off after the playoffs, and he would recover. Then he would train up for the season. Then he would elevate his performance in the playoffs. And so you can't be in playoff mode all the time, but you must be an operator when the time comes, a relentless operator. And so most people, maybe they're looking for an excuse, or maybe they will take any excuse that comes their way, but the highest performers are relentless, and they will not use any excuse. They will go out and play at the highest level, even though there are all the obstacles in the way. So that book was a next level game changer for me. And so there are days when I don't want to, I've had 6 hours of phone calls today. I don't want to do them because, my personality, first of all, I'm slightly have some introverted tendencies, so I don't love doing the calls. But
thanks for being here.
They're on the schedule, so I have to do them. Have to. I've committed to it, and once you commit to something, you go all in. You have no choice but to be the operator.
Yeah, absolutely. A concept that I learned. Actually, I'm going to read that book. I'm going to get that book, Relentless. Mm-hmm. One of the books I've been reading is this one, High Performance Habits.
Oh, yeah.
Brendan Bouchard. Yeah. I really, really enjoy his work. Sometimes I don't read the whole book.
He's a machine. That guy is an operator.
Yeah, and one thing he says, how crazy. I was not even planning this, Craig. But I turned to the page and it just came to it. Okay, it came to it and it talks about this. Performance necessity. Identifying identity, personal standards of excellence, and external forces, your social duty, obligation, purpose, and that's what drives the performance necessity. And essentially, it talks about if it doesn't just drive you, ask yourself, who else are you doing this for? And one of my mentors, sadly, he passed away a couple of months ago. A guy called Mark Hoverson.
Uh-huh.
And when I was a newbie, I'd go and do this, shiny object. I was buying every single product launch.
Right.
I used to save my money, beg money to go and buy the next product launch that came out. And one day I realized it's not the courses that's the issue. It's not the gurus that's the issue. It's me. And that was not something I was looking forward to. Okay.
That's funny. I always say that about diets. People say, will this diet work? Will this diet work? And I go, they all work. It's the people that don't work, and so the diet works. It's the people that don't. And it's the same with the product works. It's the people that don't work.
Yep. I mean, 2 mentors in my earliest days, Mike Dillard and Mark Osen, they really hammered in that concept of take personal responsibility. Yeah. And I kept thinking, but what if I buy the course? The course is automatically going to make me successful. And obviously that didn't work after going into 45K of debt at the age of 21. And Mark Hoverson, he said, write down on a piece of paper this one question or this answer. And the question was, if you become successful, who around you benefits?
Got it.
And that, because now you're not thinking about you now or your shortcomings or the fact that this hasn't worked out for you or you haven't worked out on XYZ. It's who around you benefits. And I thought, my parents would get a not much upgraded life if I become successful. And I've used that for a very, very long time. And even now, I think to myself, I'm going to be able to help more clients change their lives if I put the focus on them versus me. And I wanted to circle that back to you because you are a very humble man.
Thank you.
And so like my dad would really like you, rich and humble, and
Thank you.
and it's something that I think I'm learning and I guess I'm maturing into. Um, how do you keep yourself humble, but also go out there and still hungry, humble and hungry? Like, what's that thing?
Well, maybe it was the upbringing, because I grew up on a farm in Canada. We didn't have a lot of money, and my mom has a very strong faith background, so always going and doing stuff with her, and so just farmers' work ethic, and it's just I was raised to be generous. I was raised to work. I was raised to go out there and do stuff for family, and so I think with all that stuff in place, you just never get off track with that. And then it's all about when you grow up, who you surround yourself with. Because you can surround yourself with, as you get wealthy, you can surround yourself with people who are the flashy type, who are wealthy, for 2 years and then are not.
Yeah.
Or you can continue to surround yourself with the right people. So you do have to check yourself. You have to check your social circle, because if you start to hang around more and more of those people who are spending a lot of money or who are not humble, then you become that way. You
Yeah.
become like the people you spend your time with. So I make sure that my social support and my environment is supportive of what I know to be my values.
Yeah, that's a very good breakdown. The first probably 5 years, in my last 9 years, the first 5 years I was around all the wrong people, all the flashiest entrepreneurs that looked rich, but then you realize, they're one man show. They don't have a team. They don't have an office. They're not really doing it, but the outside was showing something else. So I've learned that lesson many years ago. Now I tend to really be productive of my time, energy, and as you know, once you become successful or wealthy, whatever the term you want to use is, you gotta guard your time and energy. Um,
Hmm.
and one thing that I've seen for yourself, you do, because back then you used to only do writing. How did you transition from an introverted writer behind the scenes to boom, growing your Instagram? And we'll talk about Instagram afterwards. I know you love it. Um, but kind of share some background on that.
Well, what I did is I started doing video in 2007. I started doing my own seminars in 2007, and I was really, really bad at it. But I knew that if I wanted to grow my business, and business was evolving, I mean, even in 2007, you could see that video was coming down the pipeline, and that's what it was going to be. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get started on it because that's what people want. And so over time, I just chipped away at it. I hired coaches, and I had coaches like Bedros who forced me, not forced me, but raised me to a higher standard, held me to a higher standard, and I had to force myself to play up to that level. So that was the key. And then, so I would go to experts, and I would also watch experts. I would watch experts on video. I'd watch experts. I'd watch comedians and pastors, which is kind of funny, like the two ends of the extreme, because they can hold an audience, right, for an hour at a time. So I'm like, if they can hold an audience, I want to be able to hold an audience too. And so I learned how to do transitions and stories and to do all of that sort of stuff and make the right joke and time the right joke. And you're not going to get this the first time you do it. But if you pay attention and you review your performance, you watch the presentations after, which is horrible, but is absolutely
Yeah.
necessary for you to get better. Then you go, oh, I should have said this, or I should have said the punchline in this way, or a little bit more of a dramatic pause, and you get expert feedback from it as well. So when I do a presentation, I have a couple guys out in the audience often who I know I can go to and say, hey, what do you think of this? What should I have done here? Like even at my big event last year where I have a few hundred people, I had one of my friends come up to me and say, hey, you're kind of like, when you say your jokes, you move on too fast and you don't let people laugh at them because you move on so fast, people aren't sure that you're joking. The reason why I would do that was because I didn't want my joke to fail. So I didn't want the joke, to give that pause and then for nobody to laugh. And then I would be like, oh man, now I feel bad. So I would just rush through it and protect myself. But it actually made the presentation not as good as it could be. So now, or even the rest of that day, I would let my jokes kind of linger. I would say the joke, pause, they would laugh, and then I could move on. It was just more natural and more free-flowing. So it was simply what I call the virtuous cycle. You identify where you are not great. You find an expert. You get teaching. You take action on it. You ask for feedback. Then you go back and you find out where you're still not good. You ask the expert. You take action, and so on. It's just this loop, the feedback loop, and that's how you get better at anything, from your golf swing to your presence on stage to writing sales copy to building funnels.
Yeah, wow, that's really, really powerful. Because I think I'm more of a naturally, I am, because I did the personality test, extroverted, but I'm always fascinated about introverts and how do introverts become extroverted. Many years ago, I watched a video from a guy called Rich Sheffrin. He's somewhat retired now. He works for Agora. He joined the Agora.
Yeah.
So Agora, a financial company. But one thing Rich Sheffrin said was, in this day and age, it doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert, you have to become digitally extroverted. And
sure.
He said, you just got to start putting out videos. And I made that transition of making videos after I had watched Brendon Bouchard. And he said, my first 2 years I was making 6 figures a year. And then my third year I hit $1 million. I was about 23 years old. And it's because Brendon Bouchard said he was stuck at 6 figures and he added one thing to get to becoming a millionaire, which was videos. And I thought, whatever happens, I need to start adding videos. And that has essentially increased my marketing influence, I suppose, by a long shot. If you were to go back, or even now, if you were starting from scratch and you wanted to build a business that has a lot of impact, influence, and income, what would be your top 3 marketing strategies or principles, something that you just won't live without?
Yeah, I think that it's another great question. And so, first of all, you need to understand the fundamentals of copywriting. So copywriting, salesmanship in print, it's absolutely important. I was an okay student at it, but I should have dug deeper earlier because, again, it's like the foundation. Imagine yourself on a pyramid here. The foundation probably needs to be that copywriting skill. The next thing I should have done, but I would have ran away from this, even knowing what I know now. Had I known this when I was younger, I just didn't have the personality for it, and I would have made excuses. But face-to-face selling, my goodness, when I have a kid, I'm going to make them get into face-to-face selling. Whether it's Girl Scout cookies or door-to-door newspaper route, if you can get good at face-to-face selling, you can write your ticket for anything in life. Because people really, face-to-face selling or selling on the phone, it's all about being able to handle rejection, first of all, because most people, that's why they don't want to sell, because they're fearful of rejection. You can teach them the perfect script, and they'll still avoid it because there's that I don't want to be rejected feeling inside. And a lot of people have that for whatever reasons from your childhood. So I'm going to get my kids into face-to-face selling as soon as possible.
Man.
And then third, I would say is probably, I'm going to say something a little bit odd here. Making video from the heart. So making video from the heart, not just using like Frank Kern manipulation stuff. And I love Frank, but like Frank Kern, like, oh, if I leave this open loop here at 31 seconds, then they're going to stay until minute 3:13, and then I open another loop. No. I mean, that stuff, I understand the value of knowing that and the persuasion, but being able to, right now, as I look into the green dot on my laptop camera, webcam, and I say, listen, I really, really care about you listening to this, and I really, really want you to be successful, and these are the things that I would have done, and I want you to take them to heart, and I want you to go and spend a little bit more time in copywriting, a little bit more time in learning how to do sales, and then when you come to video, every single time you have that camera in front of you, I want you to look into somebody's eyes and on the other side of that camera, on the other side of that webcam, whatever it is, iPhone that's in front of you, and I want you to only talk to that one person with so much love and care that they think, oh my gosh, this person really is talking to me, and this is making a huge difference to me. And Brendan is great at this, and even Frank is great at this, but the pastors are great at this. And so I want you to understand that you can have success when you narrow things down, find your one mentor, go all in, become an operator, build these 3 skills. You are going to be super successful. You're going to go out and have that income and impact and influence on the world.
I like it. I love it. Yeah, that's, when I look back, those are the 3 things I would say as well. Copywriting, good. I was very fortunate to learn email copywriting, mainly because I was morbidly obese and I didn't have a lot of confidence. So I was not going to get on video. And the only thing that I could do was write emails to make money. The face-to-face selling, God bless me. I've been selling on the streets since I was 14. I remember taking broken mobile phones, the ones that had no color, and I would get these plastic milk crates and I'd stack them up and I'd get in front of a whole bunch of people and I'd be like, who wants to buy this mobile phone? It works in any country. And people would just look at me and just walk away, and then I started selling on eBay probably when I was about 16 years old, and I'd sold everything in my house that was worth any value. Like I'm talking $10, it was out of the door. And then when I got tired of it, I thought, there's nothing else for me to sell. Let me just go to my neighbor's house. So I would literally knock on the neighbor's house and I'd say, hey, I'm the kid from the corner. My parents live there. Do you know my parents? And they'd be like, no. I'm like, well, listen, do you have anything in your garage or in your house that I can sell for you? And I'm on my way to becoming an eBay power seller. And they'd look at me like, who is this kid? And I'd say, look, all I need is one picture of anything. Because I had heard this quote, man. And it was, and I would say to the people, I'd say, they would say something like, oh, we don't have anything in our house. I'd say, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
And I'm only going to charge you anything if I sell it, commission only. So I was selling, I had no idea that was commission only sales. But I guess 16 years old, I was 17, knocking on doors, trying to sell stuff. I don't know. I think I just got it naturally from my dad. I still don't know where, because he wasn't a door-to-door sales guy, but I think I saw him be an honest, storytelling, confident man. I think that's, so I'm very grateful, man. God bless my parents.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I got to run on this one, but that is like kind of the information I'd love to leave with people is develop those skills. And those skills are not just for making money. If you can do face-to-face sales, that means your relationships with your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, partner, whatever it is, in personal life, but also in business are going to be great when you can have that communication and that persuasion.
Yeah. Craig, listen, I really appreciate your time. 2 things. One, what's last thoughts that you'd like to leave entrepreneurs that are chaotic and that want to go deep into work? And then secondly, how can my subscribers, clients reach out to you? How can they find more information about you? Feel free to go ahead on that.
Well, first of all, Instagram is my favorite social media. So I'm on Instagram at Real Craig Ballantyne. I have my Perfect Day Formula book. You can get a free copy. Just pay shipping and handling at freeperfectdaybook.com. And if you're old school like me and you still like email, you can email me at craig@godfather.com.
Okay, awesome. I'll leave the information down below. Anything else you want to add in, Craig? Any last words? Again, thank you so much.
I think we should do a second one in a few months from now. This was a lot of fun.
Okay, I appreciate it. Listen, I always take notes.
Look at that.
So these are my notes I'm going to be sharing with my wife and my family. Thank you so much again. Craig, you are the ultimate. I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it. In terms of productivity and getting things done, I appreciate you, appreciate the time. And if you're watching this, I'll put all the links down below, so go check out his work. Thanks a lot, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.